Hello, everyone. We are here with another KSAC Connection. My name is Alicia Fisher. I'm the Prevention Education Supervisor here at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. And today I'm actually in the KSAC office, which is pretty cool. Happy to be back. KSAC. And it's been really beautiful to watch her journey. So here we go. Hello. I feel like this is the first time I've seen you since everything's been shut down.
Oh no, it's been so long.
Yes. Okay, so Victoria, can you tell everyone who's watching, what do you do with KSAC? I know it's a lot, but can you give a little bit of an overview?
Yes, I can. So I'm a peer support volunteer. So I go to community events, like the storytelling event that was in the fall. That was really fun. And just support people if they're triggered by any stories or any of the things that people were talking about. Or I do also court support as well, which is supporting people going through the court system, and also doing info booths and doing some stuff with you, presenting at schools, which is fun.
I know I've definitely pushed your comfort zone a little bit to take that one-on-one support into an educational kind of realm, and so you've really blossomed. You've done so well. How long have you been volunteering with the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center?
About a year and a half now.
Yes. And you do so much. You also do some work on our 24-hour crisis line as well, or our web chats and texting support, I think. Yeah, some along those.
Yes. We just started doing the practice run for the 24-hour stuff and the new website and chatting stuff. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, we're really excited to get that launched. It should be within the next week or two. We're just kind of getting all the small things sorted out. But so what was the general kind of vibes, if you will, for why people were connecting pre-COVID? What were some of the reasons why people were reaching out?
From my experience on the web chat, it was a lot of people just didn't know what to do when they were panicking or reliving trauma. So just providing them resources like grounding or ways to help them through that and come back to the space that they are in. Yeah, things like that.
Mm-hmm. I've heard from some survivors that this pandemic has almost given them a legitimate reason to experience that anxiousness. It's given them a space to be anxious and for it to be okay to be anxious with all the uncertainty that's happening. So I'm curious, have you noticed any shifts in the type of support that's been needed during this time of isolation and COVID-19?
I definitely have. Especially because there's a lot more people feeling lonely and feeling like they can't reach out to their usual support group anymore. So just having to provide different ways to maybe reach out to family or to celebrate with people and still have that support group, that people you can talk to in a way.
Yeah, it's been really kind of sad to see a lot of our groups not happening. I think there's something really special that happens when we are able to get together to heal. Essentially, it's really validating for survivors across our community to know that they aren't alone, especially in small communities like ours with Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Haliburton, and Northumberland. We feel almost isolated in a way, and I know the northern communities have a lot to say to that. But we feel kind of like a small town, and so to hear that there is other survivors in our community, it's quite profound.
I agree.
Yeah, and so most of our groups have gone online. We have our Expressive Arts that happens every Friday with Ale. Have you ever been to our Expressive Arts?
Yes, I think I was there for the oil painting and the gas spill painting, which was really cool.
What was the second one?
It was like it kind of looks like a nuclear spill painting where you do like the cup and put it on the canvas and it just does its own thing.
Yeah. And why is that kind of painting helpful for, like, why is that kind of art helpful for healing?
I think just being able to like express yourself and just like kind of it's doing its own thing, going with the flow rather than trying to like nitpick everything you do. Because I know when I paint like with acrylic paint, I'm nitpicky. I see like all the littlest mistakes, but with that sort of painting, it just, it flows and it works.
Yeah, definitely. It's, really about like just letting go and, enjoying the process and being present. So there's a couple different like really cool things that comes from making art. And so, you provide a lot of support to our clients. Does the support that you provide vary between it being in person versus online? Is there a difference between how you support someone?
There definitely is because with like in person, I'm able to show like I'm happy, I'm friendly, I'm just here to support you. But when it's online, they can't really see that. So you kind of have to like word things and try to like just be as friendly as you can while still being like as supportive as you can be. And yeah.
I feel like emojis are really getting a workout right now. Because it's really hard to convey even what an LOL means, a laugh out loud. And LOL can mean so many things, right? Like it could be that you're like genuinely, haha, that's funny, or it could be like LOL, okay, cool. It could have like so many different meanings, or like I'm laughing at you. So our texting support, I'm really happy to see that coming along, but there's almost like an added barrier when it comes to texting that, emotion is really, really hard to portray over a texting unless you're doing like the little emojis.
Yeah. It is. You're right. You definitely like can't really tell if you're not seeing that person, like what they're texting or how they're texting it. So definitely using emojis is really helpful, like the smiley face or the tongue out face or the crying face. Yeah.
No, definitely. So, what kind of supports do you provide when you're either texting with someone, when you're on the web chat with someone, when you're on the phone with someone? How do you convey that emotion? How do you support someone? What are some of the strategies you use?
I would say definitely like asking questions like, hey, are you feeling safe? What can I do for you right now? What would you like to like focus on? Just asking them questions and giving them that control and trying to add like a few smiley faces to try it or like say something like that could cheer them up and be nice.
You mentioned control. Why is that so important to be asking people questions about what would they like to do? What kind of support do you need? Why is that so important?
It's so important because that way, when you're like in your head and you're panicking, you don't feel like you're in control. You feel like everything's just getting out of hand, and that's why you're panicking so much. But when you're given that control again, and you're being asked, hey, is this okay? Or what would you like to do? You're able to say, well, I want to do this. It's all about what you want or what the person wants rather than just like throwing suggestions at them willy-nilly.
And I feel like throwing suggestions at someone is kind of like our first inclination. We want to make someone feel better. We want to give them support. We want them to take the healing journey and be forth. But that is really overwhelming. And what that's doing is is telling someone like, I hear you, but here's how you can fix yourself. And now you have to do it. And so, someone who's had their power and control taken away in an unsafe situation or by experiencing trauma, you're essentially, unfortunately, re-traumatizing them in a way.
I agree, especially because like when there's so many people, like if you're talking to like multiple people, multiple friends trying to talk about things, and you have all these ideas being thrown at you when they may not understand like what works for you, what doesn't work for you, it can feel like so overwhelming.
Hmm. And I've heard from a lot of survivors that just don't identify with being a survivor. They're like, no, it wasn't a big deal. And so if, someone experiences some form of trauma, whether or not it's impacted them a lot or not much, it's really important that we support someone where they're at. And so that moment may just be asking questions like, what is sexual violence, or even just what happened, right? Because when we experience trauma, our brain, becomes our worst enemy in a way, right? Like it tries to keep us alive. And by keeping us alive, we go into these freeze, flight, fight responses, and we don't really have control over that, right? It's like when someone jumps out and scares you, you're like, whoa, like you didn't think about doing that. Your body just reacted. And so when we're experiencing trauma, sometimes our body reacts and we don't even know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And it's so important to be like trauma informed, especially when you're helping someone. So that way you understand that if they're reliving through trauma, or just like how to handle that and best support them in that way.
Mm-hmm. And so you talked about grounding.
Mhm.
Is that a strategy that you would typically use?
Oh yes, especially when I'm like supporting people. It's the best I think that grounding is the best way to like get out of your head and come back to the space. And there's so many different grounding techniques that there's like something for someone, which is so nice.
Two terms that get thrown around quite a bit is grounding and mindfulness. In your experience, what's the difference between those two? And does one type of strategy work better than another in certain situations?
So I guess grounding would be like getting out of your own head and just being like, okay, let me focus on like different things, like either like ice in the hand or the five senses, or like, well, mindfulness is more like thinking about like being, it's hard to describe for me.
It's the internal versus external, right?
Yes.
Hmm. And so, what are some of you talked about the five senses. Is that a typical technique that you find works the best or that works pretty well?
Yes, I love that grounding technique like the most out of all of them, because it really, you get to use all of your five senses. So you get to say, okay, I'm seeing this, I'm hearing this, I'm smelling this, and it really gives more, more perspective to like your surrounding area, which is really nice. And it's really nice because it gives an option besides like deep breathing, because I know like deep breathing doesn't work for me or some other people I know. So this is like an alternative that uses something else. Yeah.
Hmm. And sometimes when we experience trauma, we take those deep breaths. We go,
Mhm.
right? And so now those deep breaths, telling someone to breathe and relax could actually be really triggering for someone. It could put their mind into, oh, I'm taking a deep breath. Okay, I must be getting ready for something, right? And so taking those deep breaths could be actually making something worse. And so, can you go through like those five senses and like kind of explain like what it is? Because it's like, okay, something you see, but it's like, okay, I see a computer mouse. Like, what of it, right? So it's like, how do you go through that five senses activity?
So just if it's like during web chat or I guess like in person, just saying, okay, so what are five things you see? Well, I see like in the background, I have like a super colorful poster and saying like, okay, there's a whale in it, there's a bear in it. It's really watercolory, very like just describing it. So you give like more to the poster, I guess, and describe it more. And then once you like name five things, then also like the four smells or four things you like feel, and actually describing like how it feels, and is it comfy, is it soft, and just going down the list from there, like for smells, for or three smells, two tastes, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or and yeah, things that you hear as well. I know sometimes it gets a little jumbled. And so when you're talking to someone online, do they typically respond being like, "Oh, I see this watercolor poster in my background," or is it kind of like you guiding through, think about the details of that poster, or think about the details of what you're seeing. So do you find that people are actually responding to you, or that you're just kind of providing the prompts?
So sometimes people do, they will like describe something in great detail, which is great. But some people, when they hear about just the five senses, they assume, okay, let me just list off five things, list off four things. And sometimes it's like kind of guiding them through, going like, oh, but what do you notice about this? Is it like bright colors, dark colors, and things like that. So it's a little bit of both depending on the person.
And why is that so important to go into more detail than just like, oh, I see a computer mouse?
Because it's like really easy to just say, okay, I see a laptop, I just see a poster, I see like a wardrobe. But when you actually have to describe things in detail, you have to focus on that rather than maybe what you're thinking about. It gives you more time to focus and think about something other than what like you're thinking about and what's making you panic.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Like it takes you out of your head, which our minds are going a mile a minute right now. There's so much uncertainty. When are things opening up when are things opening up in Toronto? What is open now? When can I do this? When can I book the appointment? When was my last appointment? And so our minds are going a mile a minute. And so it's really important to just kind of bring yourself into the present and be like, okay, I can't prep for those things of whether or not they're going to be open or not. I have my hairstylist. She's in Burlington, which is connected to the GTA. So everyone else is opening, but not her. And so, thinking about oh, what can I do next? But what can I do right now in the present moment? And I also like holding the ice. And you briefly mentioned it too. Could you explain more about that activity and why that is a really great grounding technique?
Yeah, for sure. I really like that technique too because that way you get something physical, you're holding on to it, and it gives you like a different sensation and feeling than what you may be feeling. So you're able to focus on that and be present with, oh my God, this is so cold in my hand, rather than like thinking about something else, which is nice. It's something like physical and concrete.
Mm-hmm. And where is it dripping? And so it just makes you can't hold a piece of ice and be thinking about whether or not you fed your dog and took it for a walk. Yeah, you should think about that. But when your mind just thinking about all these other things, holding that piece of ice and, holding that piece of ice, this is not a 2-hour activity. I guess it depends on the ice cube. But holding a piece of ice, typically within 5 minutes or so, or you can even just limit it to 5 minutes, that's just a 5-minute activity out of your entire day. And so just to take that moment to hold that ice, to be with that ice, to think about, where is it dripping? What part of the hand is it touching? What does it feel like when a drip hits my leg versus what does it sound like? Is it crackling? Does it make a sound when it drips? It really brings you into the moment.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Mm-hmm. It's like such a great grounding technique.
Mm-hmm. And so this is something we also do back in the day when KSAC was open, was that, we'd offer people, do you want something to drink? And when you're going in to meet with a counselor, sit where you like. And it really goes back to people being able to choose what works for them and, what kind of support they want. And so, holding a piece of ice, that to me doesn't sound like a reason why I would call the crisis line or access the weekend web chat. Should I be accessing the weekend web chat, or should I be accessing the crisis line when I'm not necessarily like in crisis? Like, you know, I think that there's other people out there that need it more than me. So should I reach out to KSAC?
I definitely say still, definitely reach out, because it may be like called a crisis line, but really it's just a support line. Or if you're feeling like any sort of stress, or you just want someone to talk to, that maybe, because some people, it's easier to talk to strangers than like friends and family. So it's just nice having that person on the other side that is totally on your side, that is like, I just want to support you. So that's why the web chat or the crisis line is just great for that, great for overall support.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've been talking to people who have been doing this online support, and they actually love it. They love not having the face-to-face. It's something that works for them. For other people, not so much. For other people, they want that face-to-face. They want to be in the space, and so, you know, we're working on it. We're getting there, but you know, this is what the option kind of is. And so, you know, can you break down what, you know, why is it important for people to reach out when they're feeling that anxiousness?
I would say because rather, when you're like anxious, you really want someone to talk to and someone to like be with you through the process. So that way it doesn't get to the point where maybe like you're so in your head, you just can't get out, you're curled up in a ball. So it's just really nice for people to just come, even if they're just a little bit anxious. So that way they can just get the support they need. So that way they don't get to like a very bad anxiousness, I guess.
One thing that one of the counselors said is that when people are accessing our counseling services, or when they meet face to face with a counselor, one thing that quite a few mention is that that our counselor is not the first person they've told. And a reason why they're so reluctant to reach out to a counselor is because they've told someone, and the response that they got was that they weren't believed, or they felt a lot of victim blaming. So have you received disclosures about sexual violence being on that crisis line, the texting line, or even the web chats?
Yes, I have had people that wanted to disclose and just talk about it. And it was really nice because there were some that had experiences like that where they felt like they were being blamed, or they didn't get the response that they were looking for, I guess. And they didn't feel very good about it, but because we volunteers were trained, we have like peer 3 support training, we're able to give like appropriate responses, and we're always there for them and saying like, hey, it doesn't matter, like we always just want to support you and make sure you're okay, and we always believe you. And like saying that, like, I believe you, I'm so proud of you for like talking to me, thank you so much. It really just helps, and it's really nice.
If someone were to reach out, and not necessarily to KSAC, but just in our everyday lives, and saying that they've experienced some form of sexual trauma, what is something that you can say to them to bring them comfort, but also without overwhelming them? What are some things that you can say if a friend discloses to you?
Oh, well, like we presented some of these in schools and like how to do this, which a lot of the things like say asking, hey, how can I help you right now? Do you want to go to a movie? Do you want to like do something entirely different, or do you want to think about something else? That's really nice, because a lot of the time we want to be like, oh, okay, we got to do this. Okay, we need to do this. Like, you got to feel this way. And it's over.
You got to call the police. You got to go to the hospital. Have you talked to your parents? Have you talked to their parents? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be like so overwhelming, and so like, oh my God, I didn't realize I have to do like 50 different things. So, always giving them that control and asking first, like, hey, is this okay? Or just providing distraction as well. Because even if someone discloses to you, they might not want to talk about it for a long time. It might be just they wanted to get it off their chest, and now they just because they're like feeling anxious or panicked. They want to think about something else. So being that distraction can be really helpful. Or saying things like, thank you for telling me, or I believe you, which is so important because, like, some people, they may not believe someone, which is horrible and mean, but it happens. And being that person, that one person that they may trust the most to say, I believe you, and thank you so much, or I'm so sorry to hear that, is like so nice.
I was having a conversation with Julie Lalonde, and Julie goes out into schools as well as an educator, and she'll ask people, do you believe survivors of sexual assault? And people go like, well, yeah, of course. And she goes, okay, what if they were drinking? Oh, well, what if it was a friend of yours that did the assault? Oh, well, I'd want to hear, and it's so interesting that, we believe survivors, but yet when all this victim blaming comes in, we all of a sudden are not believing them. And so, something that I say to that is that you're not a judge. You're not being paid to reach a verdict. You are there to support your friend. You are there because your friend has shared their deepest and darkest secret with you, because you are the number one most trusted person in their life. And if the number one most trusted person in their life doesn't believe them, then who will? Right? They're going to be so much more reluctant to reaching out and getting more support, starting to even just think about what has happened to them in a safe place. And so, it's so important to say, I believe you. And, to your point of distraction, like, obviously there's a fine line. There's like, hey, I had this really horrible thing happen to me. Oh, do you want to color? Okay, let's, there's a fine line between offering that distraction, but also, or being a distraction versus offering a distraction. Mm-hmm. So saying something like, wow, that sounds really tough. I don't even know what to say. Do you want to talk about it? Mm-hmm. Really gives that permission back to your friend to say that, you know what, I don't want to talk about it right now, but I'm just so happy you heard me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so
cool. Mm-hmm. And so, you said the I believe you, I'm here for you, I'm so sorry that this has happened. What can I do for you right now? But what about resources? What are a couple resources that come to your mind? Obviously, every single person is different, but what are some of your top resources?
I would say definitely KSAC, because we have like so many different options, which is so nice. If like we're having a technical problem with the web chat, we have like the crisis line or something else, or you can email us, which is so nice. And also Big White Wall is one of my favorites, because you can actually talk to people who also want support, and everyone is so supportive. They're so nice and really encouraging. And you can talk to like some counselors on there as well. Or there's also the 4-county crisis line as well. So those are my like 3 main ones that I suggest.
Mm-hmm. And even, you don't need to go and be like, there's this resource and this resource and this resource. Like KSAC, if you call our center and you go, hey, someone has just disclosed to me, and I know you don't do housing and shelter work, but do you know who I can call? And we have that connection, and we can say, yeah, and we can put you on their waiting list. Like, we can get you connected to those resources. We know a lot of, we know all the supports here in our region. And so, if you're not sure, one, educate yourself and start to look at those resources before something happens. Or two, you can call KSAC. You can say, hey, like, do you want to call KSAC together? Or do you want me, when we're open for our clients to come in, do you want me to join you? Do you want me to come with you to your meeting or to your session? And you don't necessarily need to go into the counselor's room with them. You can just ask them, like, I can just wait here. It's no problem at all. Like, KSAC has Wi-Fi. I'm good. Like, we have coloring pages and fidget spinners. I don't know. Oh yeah, like, I have a little like stress ball here. And so, it's just so important to ask someone, like, what do you need? What kind of supports would you like me to provide? Like, I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really important, and being up to date on like all sorts of different resources is really important too. Yeah.
Definitely. Awesome. Victoria, thank you so much for coming on today and chatting. I know you've got some more training and interviews that you're doing today. I know KSAC, we're super busy getting ready to launch our 24-hour texting line coming either next week or a couple days after, but we really appreciate you reaching out.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here and helping out. Woo.
Amazing. And if you're looking for support, you can head on to kawarthasexualassaultcenter.com. That is where you can access our web chats available during weekdays, Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30. Our texting line is available currently Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30 at 710-5234. Our weekend web chats are available every Friday and Saturday, Sunday from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. You can slide into our DMs consensually and we can be there for you to offer support. And of course, our 24-hour crisis line, again, you don't have to be in crisis to access that support, is also available at 1-866-298-7778. Victoria, is there any other last words? Is there survivors out there listening? Or someone who is disclosed to someone who is just looking for any last words of support? Is there anything that you would like to say?
I guess just that, like, stay strong. It may be, like, really stressful right now, I guess, because of COVID, but always reach out to us and anyone else to make sure that you are supported during these hard times. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, we are not alone as survivors here, especially with the Black Lives Matter protests and marches happening, Pride Month, as well as Indigenous History Month. There's so much going on, but you're certainly not alone in that we are 100% here to support you where you are at.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Awesome. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of the day today. Tomorrow we've got Feminist Book Club, and then on Thursday we are collaborating with the Peterborough Community Legal Center for some bystander intervention training and sexual harassment in the workplace. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you everyone so much for joining.
Hey,